All right, Geoff Mosher's here from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. I don't know if you heard any of that conversation we were just having there, but Howie spoke at length today on the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson decision. And he's saying every dollar we spend, that's something that takes away from spending down the road, to which I said, because he didn't have to trade Chauncey Gardner-Johnson this year. There wasn't a huge cash savings. So he's basically saying we did it because we have these 2022 to 2024 guys that we have to, start planning for. So a lot of people are kind of reading this that maybe they didn't value Chauncey Gardner-Johnson all that much.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I just think again, it's allocation of resources. There's a player that they drafted at that position that they have to take a look at in year 3 now. They aren't obviously spent. They are looking at big cash. It wasn't a huge cap savings, but I'm sure it was a larger cash savings, which we know the Eagles are a cash over a cap team, Mike. So I think that there's a number of things that went into it. We've talked about this before. After the 2022 Super Bowl, they did similar things. They were looking ahead to young players that they knew they were going to have to give long-term money to, like a Landon Dickerson. They had to do that with Mailata. There were other players that they were going to give money to. And so they said goodbye to a player like Javon Hargrave, and they said goodbye to Marcus Epps, who did well, and they said goodbye to TJ Edwards, right? And you're just seeing a lot of the similar type of path to follow down here.
Well, and listen, I don't know if Vic Fangio's like, hey, listen, if you have to choose someone, he's the guy I value the least. Or do they also say, hey, we can withstand losing him because there's somebody that we like that maybe we're not do they like Tristan McCollum more than we think? And they're saying, I'd be fine playing Tristan McCollum. If you think you can get value there, I'm okay with that.
I mean, the player is Sidney Brown. They drafted him in the 3rd round 2 years ago. He was obviously had his career beset by the ACL injury. And because of that, he started off slowly behind the new system that Vic Fangio put in place. So he never really was able to leapfrog Tristan McCollum on the depth chart last year. And it'll be up to him to be able to do that this spring and this summer.
All right, Geoff Mosher here. Other things that were discussed today, Howie Roseman talking a lot. He was asked about, I thought this was kind of interesting because he but he gave a great answer, I think, if you're an Eagles fan. Why did you go out and sign Saquon Barkley and Zach Bond? And he said, we have to show the culture that's what we do. And these are two of the best players at their position in the entire league. Now, this doesn't always ring true. You might be a great player, and that doesn't mean they're always going to come to you. But at least that's the culture they're trying to present on the outside looking in. You had a great year. You made a low salary. We approach you. You didn't have to ask us. Same thing for Zach Bond, which is, hey, you deserved it. And we wanted to, you are a difference-making. He classified them both as difference-making players. Looks like we got a bad connection with Geoff Mosher, so we'll try to get him back on the stream here. There we go. All right, I think we got you back there. Yeah, so he classified both Bond and Barkley as difference-making players, and he admitted, hey, that's not positions that, we are generally people think. So I think, he's trying to show the culture that will do that. But the changing of the mentality of, hey, if you're a running back and you're a linebacker and you're a difference maker, we'll break the bank for you.
Yeah, I think difference maker is the big word there for both. Saquon Barkley is not your ordinary running back, and certainly Zach Bond. I don't know where the Eagles defense would have been last year if he didn't play at the level that he played at. Now, I don't think this is the start of a trend. I don't think 6 to 7 years from now, the Eagles are going to be known for being the team that pays top of the market money for inside linebacker. But while they have Zach Bond here and coming off the year that he had and the person that he is and the culture that they have and they're trying to keep, it made sense for them to do that.
Roseman was asked, Geoff, about Dallas Goedert. He said, quote, there's no update. Obviously, Dallas has been a tremendous player and person for us. We have tremendous respect for him. And in both those regards, as a player and person, the opportunities we got in free agency with Harrison and Keelan were just opportunities we felt were good for our football team. And I know certainly Dallas is a unique player. So really, that's kind of where we stand. Where do you think the team sits at this time with Dallas Goedert? Are they trying to see if they can get a pick? Do they not want to lose him? Or is it a fait accompli that they're trying to see if somebody will take on Dallas's contract?
Yeah, that's what they're at. And you'll notice that Howie did not even try to throw any cold water on what's been out there about from us and some others about how he's been given permission to seek a trade. He didn't ask for a trade. We didn't say that, but he was given permission to seek one. It's the last year of his deal. The Eagles would love to find. The Eagles don't want to give this guy away. I mean, he's a valuable player. He's a really important type of player. And could they keep him and let it play out one more year? Possibly. But if they're really hell bent on moving forward and saving the cash, I mean, there was a time with Zach Ertz was in this same situation, and everyone thought he was going to get traded going into the draft, and he didn't get traded going into the draft. And then everyone said, "Oh, well, the media is making this stuff up. They're not going to trade him." And they waited all the way until the regular season, and then they finally traded him and gave the extension a couple weeks later to Dallas Goedert. So they have some time here. It's not going to be the exact same situation as Ertz. I don't know that they would go into the season with it, but I imagine if they can't find a deal before the draft, then whatever teams didn't maybe get a tight end that they were looking for, or maybe have an injury to tight end, then you start to restart the conversations.
Right, and that's the one thing is between now and the draft, I guess there was reports before they're hoping for a 4th-round pick, and if nobody gives that 4th-round pick, then they have to make the decision. Do we just want to keep him, or are we so financially strapped that we have to cut ties with him? And you're hoping it doesn't get to that point. Because I would imagine, Geoff, you're looking at the tight ends on this roster now, and you don't have enough to compensate for losing Dallas Goedert. We had Andrew on Friday, and he was talking about the 2 guys they signed this offseason, the 2 guys that would really have to battle to try to make the roster as opposed to replacing Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, and I don't want to say financially strapped. That's really not the issue. They're plenty under the cap, and they're
$22 million under the cap, by the way.
Right, but the cap is meaningless. It's what the cash budget that was given to Howie Roseman for the team and what he has to do subsequently with that cash for not only free agents and draft picks, but in-house extensions and things like that. So they can. I'm positive the way they structure their contracts, they could keep Dallas Goedert this year and being fine. But they're motivated to want to move.
All right, Geoff.
And yes, they've stockpiled that.
Geoff, it sounds like, and I know you're probably hearing the same stuff, is that the push for the tush push to get pushed out is growing and growing to where Sirianni is now going to his former coaches and trying to get them on board to sign up for this. He's got Stefanski, it sounds like, on board. He's got Shane Steichen on board. Stefanski obviously didn't coach here, but he has already come out and said that he's going to vote for it. Steichen, Gannon, guys, he said they wouldn't be head coaches without that play. But are you surprised that it's gotten to a point where it sounds like it's gaining momentum?
No, I'm not surprised at all. In fact, I've been wrong on this, but I've felt that the tush push was eventually going to get outlawed, and I still do feel at some point it will get outlawed. So it doesn't surprise me. It's interesting to hear Sean McDermott talk about it because he seems to be on the side of outlawing the tush push, and yet his team has used it as much as the Eagles, and maybe had as much, if not more, success with it. So you have to take that with a real, I would say, objective, looking at that through a very objective lens. Here's someone who's really benefited from it, but is also saying that he doesn't believe it should be part of the game, and that if it is going to continue, he may have to look at other ways to execute it. So it just shows you the kind of diverse viewpoints there are about this play.
Now, do you think that teams are going about it the wrong way of why they want it out?
I understand why you're asking that and what you're asking. I think that it's hard to when the real reason is sour grapes. I think it's hard to dress it up and make it look better. Like some teams have talked about player safety.
Yes.
And yet nobody's gotten hurt. However, I don't think anybody has to get hurt for player safety to be raised. I think when you look at Frankie Louvu leaping over a pile multiple times, you can point to that and say, hey, if people keep doing this, at some point, someone is going to get hurt. So I think there's a little bit of fairness in it, even though the evidence is to the contrary. I really just think it's an optics thing. People don't like seeing it. It's a sour grape thing from the teams that can't do it and have lost to it. But for the league itself, I do think it's an optic. They don't want to see 5, 6, 7 tush pushes a game. And now they don't want to see other teams now trying to use like their tight end and other players to do it, and sort of creating this cottage industry of tush pushes using different players.
Yeah, see, like for me, listen, I think the play should be banned, personally. I don't think the offense should gain such an advantage that three players are able to forcibly run forward and push a guy forward. I don't think that should be allowed. Like, you can't on defense use leverage, so why on offense can the runner get leverage? I just think the play from that aspect, if teams said the legality of the play is what we're questioning here, you have three guys pushing one guy forward, that shouldn't be legal. Like, you shouldn't be able to have that extra advantage. That, to me, is the way that you present this to the competition committee.
Yep, you could also point out along those lines the discrepancies in how it's enforced and regulated compared to other football plays. For example, there have been plenty of tush pushes where the first second and a half looks like a stalemate, and then it's finally, Jalen Hurts gets pushed over the edge and then picks up more yards on occasion. And you could say, well, if this were a running back on the outside of the tackle box and met by two defenders and there's sort of a stalemate for a second and a half, they're going to blow the whistle and say that's forward motion. You never hear forward motion blown or called during the tush push. They always let it finish out and determine where the spot of the ball is after. So that's another area. You could say it's not been regulated consistently because it's hard to see what's going on under that pile and whether they're stalemating or not. So that would be another way to go about it.
All right. By the way, to go to the Phillies bet that I threw out there, Moshe, I'm sure you're interested because I know you were listening at that point. Christopher Sanchez is up to 7 strikeouts now in 5 innings of work. So he is teetering. He needs one more to get over the original number, which was 7.5. I said 10, and I don't know. I know they have Kirkering warming up. He's at 85 pitches right now, so it's going to be close. Can he strike out the side? He would probably need to do that and some. But Christopher Sanchez making a good case for my Cy Young dark horse at plus 2,500.
Yes, minor bone to pick on my side with you and Josh on saying that Aaron Nola is essentially the 4th starter for the Phillies. Listen, I get the point. I mean, I think the talent of Luzardo, and certainly after one start, is there, and Christopher Sanchez has been on the upswing. But we can't look at 10 years of being an above-average pitcher who is as dependable and reliable. Yes, he can't keep the ball in the ballpark at times. Yes, he's a roller coaster. But those two guys would sign up right now for 10 years of Aaron Nola's exact career stats. I believe that because even though they might be more talented, you just don't know. And Luzardo has struggled with
You're
with
right
injuries.
about.
I don't want to put Nola in this box where you're just not that good of a guy. He's been really good.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying I think it's a good spot if he becomes your 4th guy, that he was your 2nd guy because of his dependability and all that stuff. And now if you have guys who just have better stuff and it's moved him down and not made him as important, you could do a lot worse than saying he's your 4th option, is my point. For instance, there was guys in the past.
Sanchez and Luzardo pitched better than Nola this year. That is great. Yes.
Yeah, like in the past, you have a veteran guy like a Charlie Morton who was like really, really good, and he's your 4th guy. You're like, hey, I know I still have Morton to go as my 4th guy. You feel now the interesting part will be in that series when there's a 5-game set and you need 3 starters, not 4. Who gets the 3 starts? That's the one where it's like, how do you determine between that group of guys, Luzardo, Sanchez, Wheeler's going to get one of them, and Nola, and maybe even Painter? What if Painter comes out there and just dominates in his 2 months of work?
That, my friend, is what we call a good problem to have.
So that's all I was saying. This wasn't a disparaging remark about Nola. This was a good thing that you have a guy who's so steady and dependable as your 4th option.
Yeah, I get that. That part, it makes sense.
All right, Geoff Mosher, little football at 4 for you. A lot of news today on the football world. Howie Roseman down at the owners' meetings, and we'll have more this week on football at 4. Thanks, bud.
You got it, brother.